Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the NEP webinars. Sorry we had a 2-week break, but I know many of you will have been on the roadshow last week where we were explaining the progress of the NEP alongside 20 other digital transformation programs hitting policing right now. So today we're going to be looking at Power Automate, which is a standard part of the NEP build, and it's available to forces already, and we're already seeing some massive benefits being realised by forces who have rolled out the capability to colleagues. We're going to be joined by our experts from Microsoft. So we have Parm Singh, who's joining us today, will be taking us through the first part of the agenda, and Parm will take us through that, and then Tammy, his colleague, will actually be taking us through a use case that a force has already put in place. So I'm not going to go over to delay much more other than to say the recordings as normal will be available later today on the NEP website, transformation.police.uk/watch. So we'll put the recording up there where you'll find the other ones, and we'll pop some other details in the chat as we get on. Remember, questions. Get your questions in now. We'll put them to Parm and Tammy as we get through the presentation, and you can get as much out of this as possible. And potentially in the next few weeks, we'll be holding a workshop to learn more. So I'm going to hand over to Parm now, and he can take us through where we're going to go.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar. Today, we're going to be talking around Power Automate. By way of introduction, my name is Parm Singh. I'm a business application specialist. I'm aligned to pretty much UK Policing, Home Office and FCDO. I'll also be joined by my colleague, Tammy. Tammy, would you like to do your intro?
Hi, everybody. Tammy Briggs. So glad to be here. I'm a technical specialist here at Microsoft, supporting Parm in all things Power Platform, including Power Automate.
Thank you, Tammy. So today we wanted to talk around Power Automate. And as touched on at the beginning by David, it's great because there's a capability available for forces today. But Power Automate, really, why does it matter? For me, I see Power Automate as that glue. It brings together the best of Office 365, whether it's Teams, whether it's Power Apps, whether it's Power BI, even chatbots. Ultimately, it's bringing all these different elements together. It's saving you time, either as an individual or as an organization. And it's a simple way of being able to create these automation flows. And that's what we want to try and demonstrate today. But as we look at Power Automate, it's not just a separate silo piece of tech. As I said before, it really is bringing everything together. So some forces have leveraged Power BI. It could be to set up a data alert. Some forces have Power Apps as part of 365. Again, it could kick off a workflow. It could kick off an alert for an individual. And likewise for chatbots, you have chatbots capable as part of Teams today, and you can kick off an automation process as well. So today, just to reiterate, certainly what we want to touch on is around what you can do with 365 with standard connectors, and we can post a link around standard connectors shortly. There is obviously additional capabilities, whether it's leveraging on-prem data or Dataverse and premium connectors, and that's an additional license, and we're not going to go that way, but that is also capable. But today, we really want to make sure policing is aware more around what can be done with Power Automate. And I will be harping on about this, but really with Power Automate, whether it's SharePoint lists, whether it's Excel, bots, even when it comes to approvals, certainly there's a lot of approvals in policing. Power Automate can simplify that process, again, either using Teams, or actually if it's something to do with forms. Now we're seeing quite a lot of interest around forms across policing. This could also be a great way to kick off an automation response from there. But whether it's anything that you're using within 365, just bear in mind what happens next. Once you've used that Excel, once you need to add an extra cell, extra line, extra column, what happens next? Do you have to email someone? Do you set an alert? Why not even with OneDrive? If a new folder, a new file enters a certain OneDrive folder, you can automatically get an alert from that way. There's so many different things around bringing this together. Also, as part of Power Automate, I wanted to remind everyone that there is also RPA that's available as part of Windows 10. So for those forces with Windows 10 up to date, you can leverage RPA at no additional cost. Now on the little screen on the right, you can see it's a bit of a drag and drop, really. It's a great way of being able to record, but really the process flow is drag and drop. I remember lots of times when I've had to go into an Excel spreadsheet, go to a different system, copy, paste cells, send off an email, do something else. But why not as an individual? Why not use Power Automate to make your life easier? Now, again, this is all part of Windows 10. If you have any questions around RPA, feel free to contact me separately. But you do have this capability today, and it's a great way for an individual just to really get the most out of automation. And it doesn't just stop there. So yes, Windows 10 available today. If you do want to extend that, there is an additional licensing implication if you want to have either a attended bot or an unattended bot. And that's only a small increase, but there's a lot more that can be done with that. But ultimately, again, to focus on, you have desktop automation available as part of Windows 10. If there is a requirement to do more with RPA, again, happy to take those conversations offline. And it really is such a small amount to add on to those licenses compared to other RPA vendors out there. But ultimately, the key thing is around, you can create an app with Power Apps. You can create an automation with Power Automate, even add an RPA. You can do Power BI, and you can use chatbots, all under one unifying platform with the security built in, with the accreditation there as well. And as we talked on connectors, there literally are hundreds of standard connectors, whether it's something you already have today. Some forces are already invested in Adobe Sign, for example, and you want to kick off an automation off that. Whether it's around triggers. So triggers could be something as simple as pushing a button, or it actually could be on a schedule. So you only need to trigger an automation based on a certain date, time. And there's lots and lots of different actions that can kick off in advance. But certainly what we do know, it's not easy to an extent for people just to go in and start clicking and dragging, I guess. The best way to start is by using templates. And we do have, again, lots of templates ready to go. So it's a great way of just getting started using an existing template that someone else has already created, or certainly as that's been, part of the Microsoft stack. But whether it's something that starts off in Teams or ends in Teams, or starts in Excel and goes to Forms, there are lots and lots of templates, and we'll show you a quick screen of this when Tammy takes over shortly. An important part, because as I said, it's all under one platform, right? Power Platform, whether it's apps, automation, chatbots, and the like, all of it feeds into your admin center. So you do have a view of those automations that are occurring. And again, it's a great way of making sure you're leveraging that platform. But I'm conscious, it's all great me here talking about what Power Automate can do, but I really wanted to bring in Tammy to really demonstrate that first. But first, I'm going to just hand it across to David for some additional words, and then Tammy, get ready. David, over to yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. That's really great. And one of the things points I really want to make sure people are aware of is that out of the box in the 365 that you've got in force, all the connectors that are in are already active just for the things within the 365 platform, and they're already security assured. So whether it's if any of the connectors that are third party, they cannot be activated by the user until you've put that in place with the admins and you've gone through the DPIA to make sure. So what you can be assured of is if you provide Power Automate to your colleagues to get started, they've got the tools and aren't going to risk the security beyond the envelope that's already been put in place by the NEP and that assurance level. So that should give you confidence to move forward. And today's example Tammy's going to take us through is around one that you could deploy for neighbourhood policing or any other department effectively about managing inbound demand. So let's go over to Tammy and understand what we're going to do, and he's going to share his screen with us so we can see where we go with it. So thanks, Tammy.
Thank you so much, Dave. I don't know if I'm off mute. Am I off mute? Just to be sure, you can see my screen. Brilliant. So thank you, Palm. And yeah, I'm so excited. I hope I have enough time to show you everything I really want to show you. But the first place you will see when you go to flow.microsoft.com is what you can see on the screen right now. And as Palm mentioned, you have out-of-the-box connectors you can use available to you, as well as templates. Like, for instance, you could go to all templates, and if I wanted to look for a specific template for Teams, I could just go and type Teams in the search bar, and it will bring back all the templates that are available to me. So I don't have to start from scratch if you wanted to. So let's just type Teams, and straight away it gives you a raft of templates you can jump start from. But as Dave mentioned, and for time purposes, I'm going to go to a specific use case for neighborhood policing. So this is what the journey I'm going to take us through right now. It starts off with a voicemail being received, and what we want to do is be able to get information from that email. So that's the trigger. It's going to be an email with some data in it, right? So in this case, it's some audio transcription. But once that email is received into this mailbox, we want to trigger some automation, and that's where Power Automate comes into play. So what you're going to see is, for a specific defined period of time, we can trigger certain actions to be followed. So if it's not been if the email has not been opened for a certain period of time, we can forward it to a specific neighborhood group mailbox. In parallel, we can also create a specific task and use the out-of-the-box planner connector to go and create a task and assign it to the right officer or user. And at the same time, we can also go and create a Teams notification for that same user, and also provide details. So in one quick low-code way, without actually writing any code, you can trigger an automation just like this. So let's go and take a look at how that was built. So it starts off with, like I said, flows.microsoft.com. You just go into there, you go and you can create a flow like this. So this particular one is called NYP Power Automate. And pay attention to the different branching. So the first thing you can see is that first step when an email arrives, and that's a drag and drop. And I want to see, once it's gone to a specific mailbox, and if it's got a specific subject, and if it's got that transcription, I wanted to do something after 2 hours, after 4 hours, or after 24 hours. Again, another simple drag and drop step. We say, okay, for a specific duration, after 4 hours, go and do something. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. So if the email has been read, of course, do nothing. But if it hasn't been read, then we have a series of flow steps we wanted to do. So the first thing is to go and forward it to that group mailbox that I mentioned earlier. And then it's done some clever thing with the out-of-the-box Office 365 connector to go and generate the right number of users and get the user information. And then we can start posting messages. So the first thing is to go and post a Teams message to a specific Teams channel. So as you can see, it's already predefined. So it's using, again, that out-of-the-box Teams connector to go and retrieve those lists. And then, of course, we want that message to have a body and a subject. The next is to go and create that planner task. Again, these are predefined planner buckets that you've already created, and it just goes and selects the right one. But most importantly, uses that user and creates the task specifically for that user in the bucket. Again, no code. Everything you see here is drag and drop. And finally, we don't want to clog the email inbox, right? We want to be able to delete that email once it's been processed. And in the same vein, we could say, okay, that's for 4 hours. But if it's 24 hours, okay, we need to escalate this to a higher team. So again, a similar way, we go into the condition where we say if it's not been read for over 24 hours, go to the neighborhood policing team group email and forward that email to there, and do a similar thing as you saw with the 4 hours section. So that's very straightforward conditional branching. And then once we're done, we save, and we've got that out of the box flow checker, because of course you want to be sure the flow is free of errors. And then we've got that test available to us as well. We've got the manual or the automated. So I would rather show the automated version. So here we are in our email, and as you can see, an email is just popped in. Now that email will include that transcription, as I said, and some relevant information about that we want to start working on. So straight away in the back end, the Power Automate has ran and it's forwarded it straight to the right neighborhood team. And that was after a period of time. Of course, it's been waiting because it hasn't been opened. And then what you're about to see now is us just going through a run flow. So this is what happens when the flow runs in the background. It's got green ticks where it's actually processed. As you can see, after 2 hours with the right conditions, it's gone and done that forwarding to the RMU South team, as you saw in the previous step. And then it's gone to use that Office 365 connector and gather the right users in the team. And then, yeah, of course, it's going to do the rest, which is to send that message to the Teams channel, also create that planner task, exactly what I showed you. But this is a running version, right? This is one that has actually just run before. And of course, finally, it's going to delete that email as well. So, very straightforward. Now, there's nothing stopping us from replicating this with other use cases, right? This is just one example. But of course, we want to see how it looks like in Planner as well. As you can see, it's gone to grab the user, created that task, extracted the information from the email and posted it as well in that task. And of course, you can see other buckets as well in Planner. But finally, here we are in Teams. Again, simultaneously it's done this, it's gone into the right channel and it's gone to extract the voicemail details and posted it in the window and also used the app mentioned with the user. So that's a very quick, I know I said I didn't have enough time, but that's a very quick example, but there's nothing stopping us from using it in multiple use cases. Hand back to you, David.
Thanks, Tammy. And the use cases that I can think of just off the top of my head are things like a finance or a HR department where an email comes in, could be from a supplier, it could be an invoice processing solution that picks up and allocates the tasks, make sure people are picked up, or even, we know that the voice element is a part of the E5 licensing. If it's just an email from an external member of the public coming in and you wanted to make sure that they got a quality response, achieving the objectives, then that's part of it. So Palm, you want to come back in and explain it a little bit more?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, David. It's just to reiterate just actually the last point, even things like Sing Online Home, when those emails come through, whether it's a report of an Intel or just an FAQ, further information, it's a great way of, instead of waiting for the force control to triage it, perhaps there's an automation element there as well. But also, certainly, we are keen on running a potential workshop. Bring us your ideas. We would love to try and get involved and show what the art of the possible is. And at the same time, because the technology can do so much, if there are any additional questions outside this, I know there's some great questions there already and some fantastic use cases that forces are using today. If there are anything outside this, we're happy just to jump in those separate conversations, really explain what the art of the possible is, how to make the best use of 365, and even if it's something beyond that, at least the roadmap that's possible. But thanks, David, that's all I wanted to come in with.
Thanks. And on that point, Palm, we've just posted a link into the chat where you can register to join a workshop that we're planning, and so that you can come along and do a workshop. We can set up some breakout rooms and perhaps a little mini hack to get some created. I'm just going to ask Tom, before we go to questions, just to come in and just provide a bit of a technical assurance for people. Tom, over to you.
Yeah, afternoon all. So from a design perspective, what we've done as part of the process is create a baseline, what's called a data loss prevention policy within the Power Automate stack. So what we've stated is that, as David said earlier, only the connectors associated with Office 365 should be made available to your end users. So that would include, all of the things that have been discussed here, but there's certainly a larger number as well. Just to ensure that that data sits within your Office 365 environment and users can't create flows that would allow data to be sent externally. Those data loss prevention policies is the same that is used across the Power Apps platform as well. So again, users creating apps will have that same level as control and assurance with that. But if there are additional connectors that would be of benefit to the force, they're available. You can carry your own assurance against those connectors, and that would allow you to then present those to your users. Another alternative is if there is a requirement you can procure an additional license which allows the creation of separate environments, and specific data loss prevention rules can be associated with those. So for example, if you wanted to have some developers within your IT team that you have the greater control over and allow them to use additional connectors but not have them made available to everybody, you could create that separate environment and manage those users separately. So it is quite flexible in terms of how you present these.
Thanks, Tom. And we know there's a full audit capability in there as well to help you understand this. So I'm going to go to the questions because that's the important thing. So keep them firing in.
Just on that point, sorry, David, a really good point. Absolutely. From an IT point of view, you do have the Power Automate admin consoles, so you can see exactly which flows are being run, who's created them, what connectors they're being, that are using. So again, you have that complete visibility of what is happening within your environment. And if somebody leaves, or there are any questions from an IT point of view, you can take ownership of those flows and disable them if need be, or in turn provide some support if needed.
Thanks, Tom. And I'll just change questions we're going to ask quickly. So Palm and Tammy, get ready. Here they come. So Bob at Gwent is asking, is the best practice guidance around which username to use when creating a flow? I.e., what happens when an individual creates the flow, moves from force? Can you reassign the ownership? And obviously, a flow will only run against the user's that specific user's capability. So who's going to take that one? Tammy?
Yeah, that's an easy one. And that's, when I say easy, I mean in terms of it's a very, very regular, common use case, right? And the way I would answer it is you can use service accounts, so dedicated service accounts that isn't a specific user, so it'll be running autonomously, and you can of course assign just the right permissions for that service account, so that you don't have to worry about. But Tom, please add.
I was just going to come in. So just purely from an NEP perspective, the use of service accounts is something that we certainly discourage, purely because of the conditional access controls that we have, the requirement for MFA, and service accounts can bypass that. What you can use if there is a requirement for a specific sort of organizational flow is a service within Azure called Azure Logic Apps, which works and operates very similarly to Power Apps, but it is at that sort of enterprise scale. And there you can use things such as identity, such as a service principal, which would allow that to run without requiring a service account to be allocated against it. There's some separate licensing associated with it, but certainly if you're looking at an organizational type automation, that may be more appropriate.
Thank you. So another question we've got in here is there a limit to the amount of concurrent waits a workflow can have at one time?
Yes, I think I answered that with a link. There is a specific documentation, but there's also a way around how you can increase that limit. But I just want to be sure, Tom, if that's something that you've had commonly as well with the concurrency.
Not something that I've come across, I must say. And again, it will depend on the number of flows that are taking place, the speed at which they need to run. But yeah, I think that article is is the right place to start.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's another couple of questions in there. Only 5 minutes left, so we will keep to try and get them to time. So what do we need to do? What do we need to connect Power Automate Desktop with Power Automate in the cloud to enable the interoperability between the two and the respective online and on-premise data?
So I mean, I could half answer that. I mean, with Power Automate Desktop, prior to now, you had to use the gateway, on-premise gateway, to connect, from Power Automate Desktop into like a desktop server. But I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Pam, I believe that's gone now. So you don't actually need a gateway to connect. However, let me look for the right article, because I know it's ever changing, right? So let me look for the right article to answer that. But if you can jump in, Tom, I'll be more than happy.
Yeah, I think like you, I'm a little unsure on that one. I think certainly what we've again from a looking at it from a license from an assurance perspective, that would require a premium connector if you're talking back to an on-premise SQL database, and it would come down to that connectivity of how that data is presented. I think, yeah, certainly cloud gateways was the way that was done in the past, but yeah, I'm not sure how that is now evolved, if that product has changed.
Yeah, sorry, just to pick on that just a little bit more. So just to clarify, with the Power Automate, just to reiterate, if you are looking to connect to things like on-prem data, just with Power Automate we're talking about here, or Azure services, or any of the premium connectors like Dataverse, that does require premium license. What you can do today using standard connectors, and I know I've been meaning to post the link, I'll post the link in it shortly, but there's a whole range of standard connectors you can use for Power Automate. In relation to Power Automate desktop, there are things that you can do just based as an individual. And we can certainly, I am planning on running just a specific Power Automate RPA session for policing as well. And we can really go into a lot more detail. If anyone, again, wants to understand more around what the RPA offerings are as part of Windows 10 or then some, again, feel free to message me, because we can go into a lot of depth and do some real good demos.
There's a question here from Andrew at City of London, who's using Power Automate for an internal bookings request system. Has anyone used it to create an automated booking system that looks for available dates and vehicles, allowing users to see what's available accordingly? Yeah. Tom, I'm just thinking of our desk booking app.
I just replied into that. Yeah, so within the enabling center, there is currently a desk booking app, and Kent and Essex have developed a vehicle booking solution using a Power app, which includes some flow automation. That isn't in the catalog yet. They're just sort of putting the final touches to it, but that will be going in. So again, this is a way that you can kind of avoid some of that duplication of effort and take those solutions that are within the catalog and then adapt them based on your own local requirements. So if you don't have access to that enabling center, reach out to your Force PM or myself, and we can help with that.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions I was going to ask you, Palm, yourself around. We have the solutions catalog, and we're already seeing forces get benefits when we share things through this webinar, etc. But obviously, Power Automates can be exported as well, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can share Power Automate flows, whether internal organization or potentially outside as well. The same way like Power Apps is, and that's the really important point that I really wanted to finish up on, right? This solutions catalog is for the benefit of policing. Whenever I'm talking to police force, I want to try and make sure it comes up in a conversation. Ultimately, we don't need to keep reinventing the wheels, and it's a solutions catalog. It's not a Power Apps catalog. So we want to make sure there is some Power Automates in there, hopefully some chatbots in there going in the future. But absolutely, if there are any questions, as Tom said, feel free to reach out either to NEP directly or even to us as Microsoft in terms of what other forces may be doing, and we can try and join the dots, or just how you can try and share some of these flows across policing.
I think, we've already seen through the chat today, and we're going to be reaching out to BCH and their road policing team, because that sounds like a fantastic use case that they've put together there. And we'd love to be able to perhaps share that wider and learn more from that and provide more support on it. But, I personally use Power Automate since I landed in the NEP. I found it a fantastic little addition to taking some of the routine roles away. As you know, if you get the emails from us, we have to tell you a lot of emails. We get a lot of bounce back. So how can we manage them? We've got when we ran the summit earlier this year, people were completing a form which was embedded in the website that was creating a task and allocating it to a member of the production team immediately, and we were able to get to that to people really quickly. I think one of the points that we need to be aware of, Tom, is around we need people to be starting using the wider SharePoint platform. Yeah. Lists and file management to really start getting the benefits out of these and opening those connectors up. So what's your advice around that to forces?
I think it's with this, it's understanding the business need. I think ultimately that is the first step, and then it's using the technology appropriately. I think there are risks of overcomplicating, and I think that is the biggest issue around SharePoint adoption. We're speaking with a lot of forces is how they approaching things such as file structures, meta directory, etc. So it's understanding what the need is first of all, and is that a required need or a nice to have, and then creating that flow that meets that, and start off small and evolve. Certainly with flows, we see with a lot of forces is that they have a really large requirement, and it just takes a long time to implement and faces so many challenges. Start off simple and let it evolve over time and build it up, because that not only will build up the functionality but also build up your knowledge.
I'm going to go for one more question, and there are a few questions we haven't answered, and we'll try and answer them in the chat. But if you've got any questions, please email nepinfo@transformation.police.uk. But the last question, which is one that approvals is one of the best things I've come across in this, and the question is: is there a way to have an approval expire to the user so they can't pick up options when it reaches the timeout period? Tammy.
I was answering another chat. Approvals, I think I just want to understand that a little bit more. So are you saying, can you rephrase it a little bit?
Is there a way to have an approval expire to the user so they can't pick the options when it's reached a timeout period? So can we time limit an approval request?
Yes, you can. Yes.
And there'll be a help document around that. So I'm going to close this down now, because we always try and keep these to 30 minutes because we know the quick sound bites. We're going to keep answering the chats, but please do answer any questions that you've got. Let us know, we'll pick them up. Register for the event. We'll post the link again into the chat again if you want to come along to a workshop where we can do some more work with Palm and Tammy and others from the NEP to really start getting that. I've just posted the link again in chat, so fill that form in. We'll set a date and we'll ask the people who are registering what they want to cover, so we can really plan this and get some value for forces. And then, of course, if you're using Power Automate, get in touch. Tell us how you're using it. Share that example. We can feature it in the NEP newsletters. We can feature it on the Solutions Catalog Enabling Centre, and other forces can really start getting that benefit from others. So thanks very much to Palm and Tammy for joining us today, and Tom has been in the corner there helping away with the questions. It's fantastic that you were back. Next week we're going to be looking at identity access management and the solutions that have already been put in place across the NEP to move that forward. So please come along to that, and you'll be surprised at the capability that's already in place in terms of managing identity and the additional functionality that gives you. So I hope to see you next week.